Right, we can start. Good evening, everybody. We are recording this session, so it is available on YouTube. Mirza listens to it again and uploads it to YouTube, to the AGGA website. And Dr. Mirza and I share information freely, and we listen to growers, and we let growers share their information. And this is in no way meant to favor one company over another, or one product over another. We are completely biased, and we hope that as growers that you would read the labels and use the products appropriately, and hope that you have success with our advice.
Great. If you allow me, then I will start, and then
Yes.
we could adjust. Okay, I'll
Yes.
share my screen first. Okay, so this first slide shows our YouTube link. If you missed that link, you could take a picture, click it, or I've been sending regularly to our YouTube. Last year chats are there as well. So this year chats, if you miss it, then YouTube search Alberta Greenhouse Grower Association Greenhouse Chat. You will find all of them by date. So I think that's a great resource for what we have been discussing. Okay. Right. Okay, this is how slides keep on coming. So Michael, agreed that I'll show you how the emails also come along. Hi, Dr. Mirza. I just got these plants in, and I'm wondering if there's anything I can spray on them to get them to perk back up. It is a lobularia. And I remember last year we had a similar situation as well. I was looking at last year Greenhouse Chat just about the same time. So I wrote to the growers back right away. Okay, it is lobularia. You have Wurzel dip. She said, I do, yes. I said, okay, apply one part. Wurzel dip is a product marketed by professional gardener company. It is basically a seaweed product, but they say that it is from Norway, and it really helps with the stress on the plant. So apply one part with 100 parts of water. Please check pH as well. We'll decide if a light application of fertilizer will help. Okay, so Wurzel dip as a dunk or spray. Okay, thanks. Should I keep them shaded as well? I said yes. I see a little bit of gray mold. So one application of Rovrol should be good, or Phyton 27. Xerotol should also be good as well. So generally, when I had a close-up of that picture, I see lower leaves are showing gray mold botrytis. Okay, thanks. And then her reply came back. Okay, next she sent that these grasses, hi Dr. Mirza, I have these grasses and they are just staying dormant. Good roots, but just not sending any new ones, planted a week ago. Okay, please take a pH and EC reading. EC is one. So having a good pH and EC meter properly calibrated start of the season is a very good idea. I prefer the digital one, handheld. Some have those pen type. They do work as well, but generally I prefer this one better. EC 1.77, pH is 6. So I did recommend a shot of 10-52-10 high phosphate fertilizer with the Wurzel dip, 1 gram per liter, and the Wurzel dip at 1 to 100. Okay, after unpacking, already reports are coming in. If the plants are staying in the warehouse, they came in a little bit longer over the weekend, then I noticed gray mold start coming in. You see my cursor right here. That's a gray mold damage on the plants. This is a disease which will coming and will be more because we are not venting. Humidity is high. Disease of cold temperature and condensation on plants. We'll be talking about humidity a little bit later. High humidity and low temperature at nighttime. That is a dew point formation. low feed to maintain color. Do feed them a little bit, transplant them as soon as possible, and overall spray will be helpful. Okay, this is the other one sending me a picture. Hi, Dr. Mirza, cleaning our greenhouse. They're not in, they're in the order which I've been receiving. So you may be subject all over. Getting ready for my plants, which start coming on March 13. When I noticed this, it looks like surface mold. Is there something I could use to get rid of it? Is it dangerous to our plants? So I didn't realize that this is the walkway. So I asked her that, what is this growing media from last year? Is it a new growing media? Sorry, I should have clarified that it is on the floor. It's a dirt floor. So I told her this is a saprophytic fungi which grow on organic matter, which is there. Little bit of moisture there. So it's not pathogenic in nature. Rake the floor and apply hydrogen peroxide xylitol at a little bit higher rate, about 10 milliliter per liter. So that should keep it under check there. So this also could appear in the growing media as well because of the organic matter. These are fungi which are naturally saprophytic and are around in different growing media as well. So the only problem they cause if they're in actual where plants are being grown is that they create a water repellent mat. So when you water it, then water will not be absorbed. So that's what you have to watch. Good morning.
Mirza.
Yeah.
So this is probably an unheated greenhouse, and she still had that saprophilic fungus growing on the ground, even though the temperature was cold.
That's right. Yeah. These are pretty tolerant fungi, so they could grow there. A little bit of heat. People are warming up the greenhouse now, so they start sporulating.
Huh.
Okay, this is the email. We are experiencing very high humidity in the greenhouse. It is our first year back growing after 18 years, and I don't remember anything like this happening before. We have 3 gas furnaces, 3 ceiling fans, and now have put in 4 dehumidifiers to try to help with this issue. Is anyone else reporting this as an issue? I need help to get this under control. The roof is dripping. So very interesting comment. That is anyone else? I know every year we have this problem of high humidity. So some comments on that. So I wrote her back, received your question about greenhouse humidity and dripping. This happens when the humidity is above 90% and it comes in contact with the inside plastic surface, which is cold, thus water condensation, and then it cannot hang on to the surface and drops down. In Alberta, the major method for dehumidification is through venting. These greenhouses don't have the vent. Through venting the moist, warm air to outside and bringing in cold, dry air from outside, mix it well and with the greenhouse air. We normally don't use mechanical dehumidifiers due to energy use, but I noticed that I see here and there that they are coming into pictures. So they are bigger than a portable unit, but I see that many companies, they offer 6 gallon per hour, 5 different humidifiers, but generally the natural venting works much better. Even when it's cold, based on a humidistat, it could be open for some time, then closed. And the higher the greenhouse roof, the better it would be, then the cold air would not settle down. If your greenhouse has vents in the roof or gutters, then it works. Then we have a winter ventilation system whereby fresh, dry air from outside is brought in through a controlled intake, mixed and then exhausted. If time permits, join us on Greenhouse Chat on Monday, March 6th at 7 p.m. We will also ask many growers to share how it's done. Here is the link. So we could discuss it a little bit more later. Yeah, so I took this picture from, I couldn't find one of my own picture. So from the Google stock pictures. So condensation is all over, not only on the roof. If this is the case, then naturally your dew point is formed when you drop from day temperature to night temperature. if the humidity is 90%, you could always calculate dew point. You go to Google and say calculate dew point. So you could always know what's your humidity. If your night temperatures go, for example, 90% humidity, your dew point is likely around 16 degrees Celsius. So be aware of your dew point, because this causes a lot of problems with the crops. Not only physical cold water settling on the leaves, but also will cause quite a bit of diseases. I tried to find some picture. This is the haiku. And Michael, you have got venting right here at the gutters, right?
Yeah, not in this house, but yes, we have in other houses, we have a gutter vent, you know, where your mouse was. This
So
house,
how is this greenhouse vented?
so it's what we call cross ventilated. So
Okay.
behind me and Justin is a wall that rolls up. It's a plastic wall.
Okay.
And on the opposite side, in the distance, you'll see, you know, that there's a roll-up wall there as well. So the roof vent opening up in the 9th greenhouse creates such a chimney effect that it sucks out all the heat from this building as well.
Okay, so but you only use those roll-up vents later in the season.
Yes, what we do use is the system that you described earlier, where we bring in some dry outside air through a controlled vent. So we have what we call a jet fan. You know, in the olden days, when natural gas wasn't expensive, growers had a fan in the middle of the top of the greenhouse, and they had 2 furnaces, one on each side, that blew into this fan, and then this fan had either a tube on it or no tube, and that would distribute the heat in the top of the building. Okay. Well, we were rapidly finding out, you know, in the greenhouse industry that that wasn't the most efficient way to heat. I mean, yes, your roofs were dry, but you're putting all the heat that you're generating in the top of the building, and then trying to push it down. So we've evolved and said we are going to put our heat as low as possible, you know, possibly under the benches if we can. And by doing that, you are inevitably creating a higher humidity in the peak of the building, because that hot air rises, but not to the extent that it is if you actually disperse it in the top. So you'll see in the back, really in the back there, you see the furnaces, you know, kind of a little bit to the right, Mirza, with your mouse, right there, that gray thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the furnace. That's the furnace. There's a plenum attached to that, you know, that goes along the back wall. And then there's 2 tubes that come off of that go under the benches. So all our heat is below the benching. Okay. And it just has to trickle up through the plants and then make its way up to the peak.
Perfect. Thanks.
But we use you would have seen that during the bedding plant workshop. The horizontal, we use what's called horizontal airflow fans. I'm not sure if the person that was telling you about their humidity, I happen to know that person, and I gave her some other advice that I'll run by you to see if that works too. Good. But we have our horizontal airflow fans that go through the top of the building to help move the air. And Mirza always said that you have enough air movement in your building if your yellow carts are twirling or your empty drip tubes that have no basket on them yet are moving, swaying in the wind. So if Mirza comes to our place, he always looks for the swaying of the hanging basket drip lines and the twirling of the carts. So, you know, that is what I use as a gauge but we use in buildings where we have the higher humidity, even higher than in here. We have the rooting houses where we are just pumping the water into it and pumping the heat into it. We have our horizontal airflow fans actually pointing straight up, and it blows and hits the roof, and then the concave shape of the greenhouse is our shroud, you know, and the air moves, instead of moving lengthways through the greenhouse, moves along the short way of the greenhouse and helps dry the roof.
Perfect.
Great. And in a 100-foot building, we have 5 of those fans, as well as at the gable end, we have the fan that is has a set of louvers that's about a foot or 2 feet away from the fan, where the louvers open up, bring in cold outside air, dry air, mix that with some of the warm greenhouse air, and that's how we dry. That's how we try to dry the building as much as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael.
The other thing that I was thinking, Mirza, is this lady that has built this greenhouse, you know, after 18 years. She's by Fort Saskatchewan, and she has this greenhouse reconstructed on probably a fresh gravel pad.
Okay.
But Vanessa commented that she has less problems with humidity than she did. Yes, we do, but less this year than last year. And I believe that if you pour fresh gravel, and even if you pack it, and the soil that you're on, you know, it emits moisture from the gravel pack and the subsoil, that the first year in any building you have more humidity than later on when it gets the summer under its wings and gets the whole thing nicely hot and dried out, and your gravel pack is actually bone dry.
Good point, Michael. Yeah.
So do you think that could be? That's what I suggested to her, is to hang in there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like she has horizontal airflow fans either, does it?
She does. She says she has put some fans in, but I don't know whether, because for the past 10 years, greenhouse vegetable industry is using those vertical fans. You know, they are their blades are a little bit upward, and they really bring the dry air from top to the bottom and distribute it. So it's not only the horizontal flow, but total air mixing with the vertical fan is also getting
That's right.
We call them nivulator, Nivalator, Nivalator, nivulators. Yeah,
and
very useful.
This is that she has those. Sandra's saying that she has those fans and they work great and they circulate better than the old style. She said, yeah. This
is just quickly showing, you know, the furnace has a plenum here and then a tube here, very good for winter ventilation. Then fresh air comes from here, goes through this fan into this heating furnace. So this is Morinville Greenhouses, our dear friend. She's in heaven now. Alicia Maru, the great lady, great sharing with us, you see. So yeah, and this is just to scare you. What happened if that dripping, you try to handle it instead of air movement, you put a plastic there and all the drip comes there, and then they start you have to poke a hole in them to get on the floor, you see. So some people do some temporary
this is not an ideal situation, you know, because what you're doing is you're making the area smaller of your greenhouse, which sounds attractive because now you got like, oh, I don't have to heat such a big area, such a big airspace. But somebody explained to me that moving water through a small garden hose is harder than through a big garden hose, and it's the same with air movement. Air movement is a lot harder air is a lot harder to move in a small area, in a low area, than it is through a large area. That's why the cucumber guys and the tomato da Vinci guys, they're building structures now that are 22 feet under the gutter.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is a picture I took from a greenhouse where even algae start growing on that plastic there.
Yeah.
Okay, when the air is dead, this is a leaf mold start coming on tomatoes. So already some reports are coming in. A grower sent me the picture on my left hand side, your right screen right here, where my cursor is spot at the top. She thought is a magnesium deficiency coming up. She or he, doesn't matter. So when I asked, okay, turn the leaf around, this is mouse colored patches, and that is a cladosporium fungus. That's an indication of a dead air space. So you could predict if this is the situation, then there's no proper air movement taking place. Okay, leaf cupping in cucumbers. A commercial grower sent me cucumbers, and he said, "Why does this always happen? Every year, too much boiler CO2 with the with the added byproducts of combustion." That's what he thought, that why my leaves are cupping. I did see it a bit even when I was not dosing CO2. A good sunny week with good venting. Of course, dosing CO2 is also happening when no venting is taking place. So I called him back that, look, is an issue related to uptake of calcium, and calcium uptake depends on active climate. Even if we are present enough in our nutrient feed, when plant is not, when it's transpiring, taking up water actively, transpiration, that's loss of water through the leaves. Asked the growers to check relative humidity in the greenhouse last week. It was high, above 85%, and it was difficult to vent. The vapor pressure deficit was below 3 grams per cubic meter of air, and then the calcium doesn't move properly. Calcium is a, we call it immobile element. It is absorbed by the roots, taken to its location, leaves, cells, and then it gets there. It doesn't move like nitrogen and potassium, which could be moved from lower leaves to the upper leaves. I thought a few terms you should be aware when we talk about calcium. Photosynthesis, a term we use, fixing light energy by the leaves, green chlorophyll, respiration, breaking down the food made by plants by photosynthesis during the dark period, photorespiration, respiration during high temperature, that could take place during the daytime as well, transpiration, loss of water. This is basically how plant function. It has to transpire, it has to absorb water from the root zone, move to the leaves, through stomata, it goes out into the air, and that exchange of moisture from the leaves to the air depend on the moisture difference. And that's where we use the term moisture deficit between the leaf inside and the outside, or vapor pressure deficit. It is measured in grams per cubic meter or kilopascal or millibars. So that's the ability to exchange water from inside of leaf. Right now, if the greenhouse is not exchanging air, then it could be very high humidity and very low vapor pressure deficit, mean the plants cannot absorb water and thus nutrients. All you want to know about the power of hydrogen, Michael asked me to touch pH issue as well. What is pH and why it's so important? Difference between pH and alkalinity, how much acid to add and how to add it, recognizing symptoms, taking corrective measures. We'll be talking again about the pH because it is the biggest issue in crop management. Doesn't matter you're growing vegetables or you're growing bedding plants. And you have seen this pH range curve as well. You go Google it and you'll find it. It is different than soil. It's a soilless culture. So nitrogen is pretty stable, right from 5.5 up to 7. But potassium is also stable, more uptake, right, about 5.5. But look at phosphorus. The moment the pH in the growing media start going above 6.5, then a deficiency of phosphorus could occur very easily. Magnesium is right here. Calcium is right here, pretty stable. But trace element iron, for example, is strictly pH dependent, is uptake. So the moment the pH start going 6.5, so iron deficiency occur. Manganese is pretty drastic. So when your pH start going over 5.5, then it starts more. But look at the toxicity. Look at the manganese where my cursor is. When the pH start going below 5.5, then the manganese uptake is 3-4 times higher. Boron, same way. Alkaline pH, it will start less absorbed. And then boron, like calcium, is involved in photosynthesis. Zinc and copper, almost all the trace element, if the pH start moving in our growing media over 6.5, then deficiency occur, and the other way, the toxicity start occurring. This is a picture. This was in June, But this is happening already. When petunia start growing, the new growth starts showing those always new growth, very typical symptoms. Veins are green and interveinal area is yellow. Later on, it will turn pure white if the correction is not made. And many people will start spraying iron. That would not work. We just have to make sure that your root pH is proper, you see. So that's a pH issue. Once the colors like this, the photosynthetic efficiency reduces to 30–40%, then they cannot make food. So plant quality, flowering quality could be affected very easily. So just watch your pH, and that's why Michael and I always emphasize having a good pH meter is a must, in my opinion. This will be a very good investment to have.
So Mirza, can you go back to that slide with the pH effect? Yeah, this one. The pH. Okay, so for people who think this is all Russian, you know, or some other language, Dutch maybe, the narrower the strip gets, the less of an uptake of that element you have.
That's correct.
So if you take iron, for instance, because that's you know, often we see often iron deficiencies in these newer varieties that we all grow, those strong growing varieties.
Right.
That iron uptake, you know, is probably the best between 5.5 and 6. So, you know, and you see that even phosphorus, you know, is reduced. But if you look vertically, then between 5.5 and 6, you know, that is where for most the elements you see the best uptake. And it is dangerous. It is dangerous if you had iron deficiencies like Mirza is showing in these other slides. It's dangerous if you had iron deficiencies and then fixed your and found out that that was caused because of a pH problem, not because of the amount of iron you were giving. That if you fixed your pH, that could actually lead to iron toxicity, because there is a buildup of all these elements out of the fertilizer that you've been giving it all along, and that has an effect where it's not being absorbed by the roots. Now you're fixing the pH, you're fixing the problem. All of a sudden, all that iron becomes available. So,
Michael, a little bit correction, because pH is logarithmic, so it would be 2–3 weeks. So it won't cause toxicity just like that, you see. So because it is a slow process, it's not that all the iron which is in the media will be suddenly released. So because if the pH was, for example, 5.5, if you look at vertically in iron, so you start to bring it up, so it's still it would not be released that suddenly. So
but I mean, if we're talking of like I was talking to that one customer who's probably has a pH of 7.5, and now all of a sudden decides to use you know, acid to bring his pH back to 5.5. Well, then the logarithmic effect, you know, is bigger. But I agree that, you know, the change in your soil is not as quick as the change in your water.
That's correct.
So you'd be able to flush it out. Okay. The fear is not as imminent as I led it to believe, but it is still, you know, there's still that 5.5 to 6, you know, range is still very good pH to have. And there is very few places in Western Canada where the pH of your water is actually that low. We are always talking 6.5 to 8, you know, is what well waters, what surface water, dugout water, you name it. It's usually around that. So you know, the effect of just water without adjusting the pH is significant. You know, you're going to get good calcium and magnesium uptake, but that's about it.
And a very good point. Start monitoring it, and always tell me, hey, I'm growing 4 or 5 of a different type of plants. How could I monitor each plant? So there's always a category. Geranium is one category, and petunia is the other category. Petunia become like this picture I showed you. They show the first symptom pretty quickly of iron deficiency due to pH going over 6.5 on them. And then the plant themselves change the pH. So pH is so complicated not only your fertilizer, but your water, bicarbonate, acid, but the fast growing plants secrete, they absorb more nitrogen and in return more secrete the alkaline ion more, and that start affecting it, you see. So that's why we are emphasizing the effect of pH more and more. Geraniums, they are also susceptible to deficiency if the pH start going over, but more susceptible to, because many fertilizers being used are then more acidic in nature. So we have to watch the acidity, alkalinity of our fertilizer as well. This is an example where the pH in geraniums was below 5.5, and pretty quickly they start showing toxicity. Actually, we should have spotted this much earlier. When grower called me, this is too late now to recover because already sales season has started. So these plants have to be removed from the sale area to the back area and have to be dumped. So one of the purpose of the greenhouse chat is to show this picture and you're being alert so that you could save your crop. So I'll show you a picture right at the end where a grower sent me around 6 o'clock. It will start as a pinhead spotting to begin with. That's the time to take action. This has gone too far. Very high iron and manganese in the tissue will kill the leaves like that. Look at that one. This is an old example. When I took the pH, it was 4.7, and already damage is done on these leaves here, leaves here. But look at this leaf here. There's a pinhead injury developing. So a lot of good information if you have it, but start using pH meter far more early. Calcium, serious calcium deficiency in petunias. Notice that unlike iron, they're all turning whitish. Generally, calcium and boron work together. When there's a deficiency of calcium, boron will also be involved in that situation. Michael and I are pretty familiar with that. So many times we jump our boron in the plant to his growing. But these are the typical symptom, calcium shortage, plus there's a witch's brew, we call it, that they're very stunted, very short internode, and that's a boron is also implicated in this one. So monitor pH regularly, calibration of pH and EC meter, pH of the starting growing media, pH adjustment with potassium bicarbonate, use of acids. In last chat, I recommended that our commercial growing media, they add enough dolomite lime to guarantee a pH of about 5, 5.2, 5.5. So we always add potassium bicarbonate as a part of we could dry mix it, 1 pound per 3.8 cubic feet bale, or we could give them a drench at 1 gram per liter. And generally 1 gram drench will bring up the pH to about half a unit. Okay, good afternoon, Dr. Mirza. What is a safe EC reading for a constant feed on bedding plants in the greenhouse? I replied that EC means electrical conductivity of a solution. This will give a total picture, not specific nitrogen or potassium. For bedding plants, the fertilizer EC between 1.5 to 2 for constant feeding, including the EC of water less than 0.4. Monitor geranium and petunia as your indicator plants, and always we have to adjust the EC based on sunlight. If the sunlight is high, then the EC has to come down. Otherwise, we start running into high salt buildup. And many a time I recommend grower, if you want to grow on a constant feeding, then after 3-4 watering, just leach with plain water in between feeding. Just came in about 6 o'clock, send me this geranium picture. And the grower said, I noticed this over the weekend. I think it's a virus. Is there anything we can do short of destroying the whole crop? And I said, oh, hold on. It doesn't look like a virus to me. Please take a pH and EC reading by pouring water through the pot. So already when I enlarged it, I noticed some pinhead black dots are developing there. I could see that picture better, but it is not a virus. So we just have to be careful in diagnostic, and that's where we could help a lot. You see, instead of wasting 1,000 uranium, destroying them, if you could save them, you could pay the AGGA membership very easily. and,
for the next 10 years.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. And Vanessa wanted a few questions on fertilizer. I just want to emphasize that to make a fertilizer complete, it has to have nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and all the trace elements. So most of the time by law, we only give nitrogen, phosphorus, and those numbers are NPK. So we always have to add calcium nitrate. When we are using Michael's fertilizer nature source, we always meant to add extra calcium. Last chat, we talked about 0.75 grams per liter of calcium. That gives, under our light condition, we have to compensate. If you're using other fertilizer like 5,6,27 or others, that's always combined with calcium nitrate. So that is a balanced fertilizer. So always remember that. Regarding PGR, let's have a discussion on that, plant growth regulators. My observation is that most of the time I see growers are not using those PGR except Psychocell and a little bit of B9. Otherwise, temperature, cold water is more commonly used. We have learned quite a bit with temperature management to keep them compact. Michael, your comments on that?
I totally agree. There was a gentleman one time at the Greenhouse Industry Show that did an entire talk on keeping plants short without the use of growth regulators.
Right.
And I think what we have to remember is that we have to drop our temperature in our greenhouse much sooner than we think. Right. As soon as plants are established, hanging baskets that need to be a little warmer, they would go up in the air closer to the heat. You know, they could grow a little faster. But a famous grower told me one time that if you feel like you want to wear a jacket in the greenhouse, that's when the plants are happy.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I mean, you can grow a very nice crop. You know, it'll take a little bit longer, but it can grow a very nice crop with temperatures of 12 to 15 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, that temperature comes once plant are established. So
yes,
during the process of growing, in order to avoid a stretch, is basically spacing. For example, the most stretch I see in tomatoes, you know, when you grow them in plugs at a very high density, then they start stretching. So that's when people use B9. So I always emphasize give them proper spacing earlier, and you will grow very nice compact plant. And tomato is a good example. A little bit of purple color indicates a good cooler night temperature, 16, 15, 17 range. And your 24 average is cooler, and they will stay very nice compact, and will very nice flower set will be on them. So Debbie, any comment from you on growth regulators?
I'm the one who said that about the yes, about wearing
the jacket.
Okay.
You know what? I think that after you've been growing a few years and you kind of find your groove, and you have a procedure and it goes pretty smooth. Getting to that point though can be challenging. Like, I am not someone who loves science, so for me, I just talk to my reps and say, hey, tell me what to do and I'll do it. Right. But I'm not interested by it. I just do what I'm supposed to do to get the results I want.
So the question was, do you use any PGRs or depend on the temperature?
Oh, PGRs? No, I just grow chili.
Good.
I grow as chilly as I can for the plants I have in those houses.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've never used a PGR. I don't know. I don't think we need to.
One of the standard practice which we always say, use the diff, you know, the differential, and is only first 2 hours of the morning sunrise. where you could keep them cooler, say 14, 15, and that's enough to bring the 24-hour average temperature down. And that's then give you good quality, nice compact plants and a lot of good flowers on them as well.
Yeah. Okay.
We have from Vanessa. She says, have you ever been to aspen greenhouses? They grow on the floor and use little white tunnels. Is that to help hold heat closest to the plants? At aspen, Vanessa, they use those tunnels when the rooting sinks. So they are trapping the maximum amount of heat in those little tunnels. And yes, that keeps the heat where they want it, but they also have to use a fair amount of heat. And they have pipes in the floor, in their cement floors, that traps that heat and gets those plants to root rather than making the heat escape in this very large greenhouse where they're doing this. So, but as soon as the cuttings are calloused, they start removing those tunnels, a little bit at a time. Hopefully that answers your question. And let's see here. What's the optimal humidity, Mirza? I put in the chat my optimal humidity. What is yours?
Yeah, most of the plant, my recommendation is to grow between 65 to 75 is your optimal range. Again, based on the temperature. That's why I'm emphasizing the vapor pressure deficit, moisture deficit. Temperature and humidity plotted together give you an indication what sort of vapor pressure deficit is. So humidity alone will be 65 to 75. Actually, our problem in Alberta is that our winters are pretty dry. So as a result, what happens is the moment powdery mildew comes on your verbena or gerbera, that's an indication that you are a dry grower. Your air is very dry. When you have botrytis, this means your humidity is pretty high. So those are two good indicators of your greenhouse humidity, but optimum maintain between 65 and 75.
Okay. Then the question is, how do you check soil pH? From Vanessa. Vanessa, the best way to check your soil pH is to take a container of growing media with the plant in it, and you slowly pour water onto it until it starts to drip. But make sure that the water does not disappear between the edge of the pot and the container. So you don't want to take one that's too dry. You want to take one that's moist, a pot that's moist, choose a plant that's moist. And you want to catch some of the moisture that comes out. And usually it kind of looks like a weak tea because, it's brown, and everything, which is a good sign that you're catching things off the soil media. And that solution, and you want to collect about, 100 milliliters or something like that. And then that's what you stick your pH probe into, and that's how you check your soil pH. There's another messy method with, a paste, but that's real messy. So let's just use the pour through. It's called the pour through method.
Good one, yeah.
Okay.
And EC could be measured in the same solution. And one of the questions always comes, should I use distilled water? I say there's no special need. Even if you use your own water, the pH of it is not going to significant because of is a buffering. So pH doesn't change that rapidly if you use distilled water or you're using your own regular water.
Plus, you're trying to catch what's currently in the soil.
Absolutely.
that the roots of the plant are exposed to. So that's why it doesn't matter what you're using as a solution to pour through.
Absolutely.
So Sandra has a question in regards to temperature control and pH and PGR thing. Sandra, turn your mic on.
Okay, so taking into consideration the chart that you gave last year about the greenhouse temperatures, what to start at and where to start putting them down to.
Yeah.
I have a gutter connect building. I've got automatic roof openers. I've got a sidewall vent and I've got shade curtains. I also have heated floors. It doesn't seem to matter in this area because the temperature, the other day, the greenhouse was 90 degrees. I had to open the roof, which I'm lucky I could do because there happened to be no snow on it, but,
Right.
and my shade curtains were on. So that's how warm it gets down here compared to like a lot of the growers are from Saskatoon north. So you guys don't get as much of the heat as we do, as quickly as we do. So I find species like Supertunia tend to just take off, even if you try really hard to keep the temperature down. I cannot consistently keep it where your chart says for it to be, because the conditions during the day here do not allow for it. Even if I have my roofs open and everything, like
Mirza made a very good point, and he uses a term called average daily temperature. And if you had a period of 90 degrees, it was 30 degrees Celsius, I'm a Celsius man. If you had a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius in your greenhouse for a certain period of time, because it's not like that warm from sunrise to sunset. There's a one time where it's 30 degrees. Now, if you reduced your night temperature much below, and you use a night temperature, say 12 degrees Celsius, and for 10 hours, for 6 hours, that temperature is 12 degrees Celsius, and for 6 hours the temperature is 30 degrees, just for sakes of calculation. So you have a 6 hour period of plus 12, and you have a 6 hour period of plus 30. Let's say that happened. Then your average is probably closer to 20 degrees, 18 or 20 degrees. So I wouldn't get too worked up about these spikes, in your daytime, because you're by Swift Current, so you have a lot more light, the same as in Medicine Hat and Redcliffe. But if you look at your average day and you dropped your night temperature considerable, even early in the crop, then you're maintaining some of those average temperatures, that very close to those average temperatures that I recommended last year.
And also remember, I'd like to add that whenever temperatures spike like this, make sure your humidity goes with that. If it's 30 degrees centigrade, your humidity is 20%, you're in big trouble, even with those couple of hours. So always wet your floors and raise the humidity, and then plant will manage it much better. Many greenhouses use screen as well to cut down the light during those periods as well. So I don't know, Sandra, if your greenhouse has some shade screens or not, but that's other option which is used.
I do. I had them put in last February, so I do have shade curtains, which I keep open 25. I keep them open 25% when the roofs are opening for the airflow thing. But how much shade can you give them? Let's say, for instance, we've had times here in March when it's gotten extremely warm and you're planting plugs and it gets a little bit too warm for them. How much shade can you give new plants without affecting their growth?
Yeah, many growers have green shade cloth, so they will put in that area where you are planting them and stay there for some time. Earlier on, the even low light shade is good for them for rooting. It's once they got established, and even there's a light saturation point as well. Light over say 1200 joules or about 400 watts per square meter. Plants are not using it. That light is being used for heat.
But to put it in a percentage, most of your shade cloth will be about a 50% shade, and at 50% shade, you're not going to see any stretchy growth. But you're going to want to regulate. I'm guessing, Sandra, your shade curtain is automatic. So yeah, you're going to want to open that outside those peak hours. So when the sun is not that intense, you're going to want to start opening your curtains slowly, and then as the heat builds up and as the daylight, the light intensity builds up, that's when you want to start closing them. But fully closed and 50% shade, you can do without doing any harm.
Beth, you had a follow-up question to Sandra?
That was Beth had a follow-up question.
Yeah, sorry, I had to get my mouse to unmute me. So what happens when we grow in cell in the same spot and have crops at various different stages of growth just because of heat zones. So I have the same problem Sandra does with the temperature spiking during the day. You referred to mixing of cold air when it comes in. I just have a straight intake shutter that's pulling air in, and it doesn't get warmed up. It's straight cold. It's the only way I have to get intake.
But Beth, you probably, when the louver's open, you probably have a fan on the opposite gable that turns on as well.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I'm
so
only
you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing.
I'm only 13 feet high, so I'm pulling cold air across. Like when the plants are close to the front, I'm pulling cold air across the plants.
Yeah.
Is there any other solution?
If you could put even a household fan, you know, like one of these ones from Costco, and you make it, you put it on the ground just below your air intake louvers, and you make it blow up, then it will divert the cold air that's coming through your louvers in far enough that it repels it through the air and then picks up heat, you know, 5, 10, 20 feet in, and then it'll be blended enough that it won't hurt the plants right by your intake.
Put a diverter instead.
Roy's go ahead and ask your question.
Can we put a diverter up there instead, Michael?
You can do that. You can put a piece of plastic or a piece of plywood under about a 45-degree angle, hooked up to the bottom of the louver, so that when that cold air hits it, it bounces up. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Michael, I did that at our greenhouse.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Jeb's greenhouse, but we have 48 by 48 intake fan. And where we had to put it is directly in line with the hanging baskets. Last year, I thought we were going to lose like 20 to 30 hanging baskets in front of that thing, but they turned out to be very nice, compact baskets because they were so cold all the time. Yeah. But it was like 3 degrees outside with the wind coming in, and we didn't have a diverter or anything. And this year we put a diverter in. Well, I attempted to put one in it under my construction. It's a diverter, and it does push it up, but it will still hit those baskets. But we didn't lose the baskets last year. They were just much slower, and they also got bugs the first. So
yeah, of course. that'll be your pilot project. So Debbie is saying that once her petunias have established, she puts them in a house where it's 5 degrees Celsius at night, which is not far away from what you're saying, Vanessa, with your +3 outside. Okay.
Okay, go ahead with our guest now, I guess. So.
Well, yes, thank you, guests, for hanging in here and allowing us to answer questions. So we're going to go ladies first. So we have with us Megan from a company called Express Seed Company. And like I said in my announcement to remind everybody that the chat was on tonight, Megan has an amazing job. She gets to travel all over these tropical countries and looks at these greenhouses. And we all know where unrooted cuttings come from, but she was passionate at our greenhouse a month or 6 weeks ago when her and Ryan came to visit, and with a few other people, but I saw Ryan was on the call as well. And she was telling us and showing us pictures of the places that she's been to some of these rooting farms. And I would love to have her share her screen with us and show us some of these pictures about what goes on in these large rooting farms.
Megan, go ahead. I have allowed you to share the screen.
Okay, awesome. Let's make sure this works. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. Not as familiar with Zoom as I am with Teams.
So go to share screen.
It should be coming soon. Now?
No.
You're load. Is it loaded already on your desktop? And then do you press the share screen?
Oh, it came up now. Okay, maybe there's a lag.
Good, yeah.
There we go.
Good. Yes.
Okay. So, yes, Michael's right. I love my job. I am very fortunate and very blessed. So I hope through this presentation, you guys will understand a little bit about what we do, a little bit what our company does, and a little bit why we do it. I have a little bit of everything in here for you. So if you have any questions, maybe just type them into the chat or ask them at the end. You feel free to interrupt me. I'm here to help. So just shoot them my way. So basically, I'll give you a little bit of history. So I went to school for forestry, actually. My grandparents lived in central BC, and they wanted me to be in agriculture in some way. So I chose forestry because we were farmers. And when I said I was getting into flowers, my grandfather was not really that happy. It's just kind of funny because he really believed in food products. So I went to school, so I'm gonna poke some fun at myself. So here's me as a little kid on our farm. And we used to put all our produce that we produced onto the train. We would ship it to Vancouver. And we had almost 5,000 acres in production and a huge packing house. And we grew everything from corn to cabbage to strawberries, every single thing. And I think my favorite thing about being in this industry is just how we're a huge network of people. We're connected together with a passion. We support each other. And no matter the country, the language, the education's available to us, we all invest in this global community together. So I was talking about this with Michael, and this is how and why he asked me to come talk about this today. So matter the size of anybody's operation, I work mostly with large growers, so Home Depot, Superstore, Costco, Walmart, but a lot of you are independent garden centers, or even if you have a roadside stand, we all get our products from the same global supply chain and the innovation within that supply chain. And together, we're all connected into this huge global family. And I'm fortunate enough to call a lot of these people my family and my friends. And I just love my job every day. So I'm going to talk about these three people today, because these are the people that I travel to quarterly or yearly, and just sort of how they all relate to us. These farms, why I chose them is because most of the products produced in these three farms are shipped into Canada. Their main source of income and their feed of production is up to us. So that's why I chose them. So we have Danziger in Guatemala, Syngenta in Guatemala, and Kienzler in Costa Rica. So Danziger is probably the newest farm on the block worldwide right now for production. So Danziger has a very unique family-run business and drive that just transpires around the globe. It's amazing. So growing extraordinary flowers starts with the highest quality of plant material. Danziger is continuously expanding to meet industry needs and just keeps doubling your needs and expectations. This farm is a prime example of how the partnership and passion drives and supports our industry. So I started traveling to Danziger almost 9 years ago. And the first year I went there, this tiny little greenhouse you see in the picture was actually only the first, just one little row. That's it. And this is how fast this farm has just grown. And every time I go there, something new is being built, every single time. So here's kind of a sweet little memento. So this is Mr. and Mrs. Danziger in Israel. As a young couple, they started producing cut flowers. And then actually this year I was in Israel in November looking at the breeding material that is allotted to come to North America for 2024, 2025. And I actually attended this couple's birthday. And Mr. Danziger this year turned 99 and Mrs. Danziger turned 97. And their family is still the owner of this global company. They live on the property, and every day this couple walks their greenhouses. Every single day. And it's quite hilarious because their sons now tell me that every day they take a plant home and that they are their best customer. So it's, you know, similar to all of us, we have some kind of connection. And I thought I'd just share this with you because it was a very special day. So this is the greenhouse down in Guatemala. The key facts about this is this business was established in 1953 by that couple you see in the previous slide. They have propagation facilities in Israel, Guatemala, Kenya, and Colombia. They manage their own breeding and hundreds of other breeding rights underneath their roofs. They service thousands of customers globally, production facilities covering more than 70 acres of open fields and 15 acres of state-of-the-art greenhouses, 15 hectares, sorry. Over 500 million cuttings from Danziger varieties are planted every year around the world, and they employ more than 1,500 people. So the really cool thing that I find with this company and why I like working with them so much is it doesn't matter if you travel to Israel, Guatemala, Kenya, or Colombia, the management treats the people the same, their family, and everybody is very well taken care of. So in the bottom pictures here on the left, I have Omri. He is the farm manager, came from Israel, and he actually built this farm with the Danziger team. The middle photo is actually the security hut when you enter the property. So there's still gentlemen there to this day. In tradition, they open the gate for you and you go in and they close the gate. It's a little bit historic, but it's still there. And then this middle picture is actually the hut that they built in the jungle before they started leveling the property. So they worked out of this little hut and ate lunch and worked there every day until they had a farm. So here's Omri. Omri is the farm manager, as I said before. So it's in Santa Rosa, Guatemala. There's 16 hectares under production. They mainly supply North America, and he has roughly 300 employees year round and 600 in the peak season. So you can see all the employees are very well taken care of. The crops are managed. Everybody has a smile on their face. I've never seen anyone unhappy with this farm. Here's a young lady here packing up the cuttings from the greenhouse. So they take the cuttings and then they put them in the bags in the greenhouse, put them in the little container, and then they take that, which will be picked up from each house. So Danziger has very core values on fair employment practices, clean material that's traceable, quick time to market. They're very customer oriented. They do perennial production and annuals, which is very, very unique to have both genuses, both categories in your farm, along with foliage now. They also advance production planning, which I'll explain a little bit later. And then they are very, very techy. So the owners actually were in the Army, and they were in surveillance and computers, and their other passion is technology. So their farm is very techy. So at this farm, they also produce the regular cuttings, calloused cuttings, and auto stick cuttings. So just so everybody knows. So this is the main corridor of the greenhouse inside. And it is, I believe, about 3 kilometers long now. It's very, very long, and you can see it is spotless. So the other thing I would like to point out is everything is throat screened. Everything is built custom for the plants. And if you see this really weird red dirt that's through the middle of the greenhouse, that's actually a volcanic pumice that they use for the soil in this facility. And why they do that is because every couple days they take a huge tractor with liquid chlorine and they drench the soil. And this pumice-like soil actually has little holes in it, and it will absorb all of that chlorine. And then the floors are always sanitized. The wheels, people's shoes, everything gets sanitized because they literally just blanket the farm with cleaning products. And actually, I visit the farm all the time, and every time I leave, my shoes are bleached and my jeans are bleached every single time. So this is what you'd see outside the greenhouse. So we're not allowed in any of the greenhouses. It's very strict protocol. Even to go down the corridor, we have to go through the cleaning process, and we have to put on lab coats and be hygienic. They clean all our cell phones. They make sure all our shoes are clean, everything, fingernails, everything. And then in the greenhouse, what you'll see is these signs. You see this orange board to the left. So this would be if you're on an orange team of crew, which means you're in the orange colored greenhouses. So everything's pictures and everything is color coordinated because most employees can't read or write. So everything's by picture and color. So if you see on the board, there's the protocols are very, very strict. This is for greenhouse 9. So they're telling everybody in the photos, like, no food products in the greenhouse. Make sure no nail polish. So that's interesting. This is not a rule at every farm, but this is a rule at this farm. No nail polish, because if any bacteria or virus is under the nail polish, they don't want it in the greenhouse. You're not allowed to eat peppers and tomatoes, any pepper and tomato product at all. Even if it's a tomato in your sandwich, or you had, I don't know, tomato chips, nothing. No peppers, no tomatoes. No fighting, no cell phones, no firearms, proper clothing. You have to be washed, and you have to change every time you go in and out of the greenhouse. So the gentleman in the middle here, he's holding that basket of cuttings that the lady had harvested. So she will walk those cuttings to the front of the greenhouse. So she stays in the greenhouse. She will put the cuttings basket into this refrigerator in the corridor. And this is where the supply chain, the cold supply chain starts for all these cuttings. It will cool the cuttings down, take it to the optimum temperature before they get to the warehouse. So this is different than other farms. They have the coolers within each individual harvesting station and not just in one big cooler for each farm. Then this gentleman here in this bike will ride by every 15 minutes, and he will take those baskets out of that fridge and put them into this clean trailer on this bike, and they will ride them up to the front and put them in the main cooler. So this allows the cold chain to start right away and allows those plants to be the best quality for our customers. The picture down here on the right-hand side is Omri, the farm manager, and he's actually handing us out ice cream out of here. So this was a joke. Everybody was complaining about how hot it was. So he got his staff to fill the bikes with ice cream, and he proved to us that the ice cream could be delivered in 15 minutes. So these guys do have fun. Here is a mock-up because we're not allowed in the greenhouse. So if you can imagine, each crop would be an individual bench, and each partition would be where an employee would start and stop their duties. So each partition, you can also see, has a color. We got green, we got yellow, we got red, we got blue. So this is how they have trained their staff, that they are changing knives, cleaning knives, not cross-contaminating cuttings, not cross-contaminating harvesting. So this color pattern in the greenhouse teaches the staff when to start cutting and when to stop cutting, so that they clean and do every process of hygiene between every single harvest. So to the right, there is a purple bucket here, which is for garbage, a purple spray bottle with hand sanitizer in it, and then you have a purple basket where the staff would put 5 cuttings in each slot, because a lot of the employees can't count. And it's also a way to make sure that the counting is done correctly. So they will put 5, they know how to count to 5, and they'll put 5 in each little container. And then once their tray is full, they will dump them into a basket. Here's a close-up because this is super important. You'll see as I go through different farms how everything changes. So this blue knife and blue sanitizer is only for this crop. So within this farm, the cutting people will change and clean their knives and clean their hands roughly every 4 feet for the entire day. So every couple hundred cuttings they're cleaning. So this is, Danziger is one of the only farms in the world right now that has real-time availability. They can let you know if they have more or extra instantaneously. Even if they're sold out, we can ask them through their system if they might have more, and they can have their ladies go in the greenhouse and they can check the crop to see if we can get more cuttings. So they have spent countless hours developing their own system and training young ladies and young gentlemen to use a computer, to know how to count yields, to know how to say good or bad with watching for the quality and stressor points within each crop. So here they're showing us this young lady, this is what she would wear, and this is how she counts. And there is one of these ladies in every single different block throughout Danziger doing this job. So as we're harvesting, we're getting real numbers and we're knowing if we can get less or more so that our order confirmations are correct. Another really important part about Danziger is they have a standby order bucket. So if they have 1,000 petunia red today and we sell 1,200, the 200 will sit in a bucket. And this is the lady that's responsible to tell us that 200 can be made available, and she will add it to the orders. So Danziger, because they're the newest, brightest, and shiniest facility, have made partnership with other people. So this is Ryan from Syngenta, and he's actually looking at the Think Plants perennial crop from Syngenta. That's through that window. I don't know if many of you have seen this black catalog, but this is the amalgamation of Danziger and Syngenta genetics that come from this farm, which is the first umbrella of marketing for these products. So on the left, you'll see the hukra crop. This is a picture I took through the window. And on the right is actually the backup mother stock material in case anything goes wrong. So that is actually within this facility. So if something gets diseased or there's a quality issue, they can restart harvest and start again in real time to make up production numbers. Here is some examples of the cuttings from this catalog. So we have the agastache, the seed, and the sedum. So this would be the exact size and spec that the employees would be using to take those cuttings that would be shipped to you. And this is also available on danziger.com or thinkplants.com. If anybody feels that their cuttings are off spec, you can always go online and then compare from the online spec charts that they provided to everyone. So these are all of the people now that are part of this Think Plants marketing umbrella. And I think it's really important to point out that it is a bunch of very, very good breeders. They're coming together and they're sharing information. So when we're talking about this global family of horticulture and people, all of these people now are working together under this umbrella to better themselves and better each other and bring their products to market for all of us. And then I included at the bottom the new echinacea from Danziger. So this is Danziger breeding. This is the first echinacea that is from a cutting. Echinacea primarily is from seed, which takes a really, really long time to produce, or it's from tissue culture, which is extremely costly. So it is out of amalgamations of these partnerships, like the ones above, that, you know, their innovation creates a way to do something that's never been done before. So this is why I added this in here, just for you guys to know that this is new thing. So look out for echinacea from cutting. So the brand new foliage. So foliage is primarily produced in open greenhouses or open fields in South America. It's very dirty, it's very weedy, it is full of pests, it is difficult to ship, and we can't order by hundreds, we usually have to order by thousands. So Danziger is now producing foliage from cutting, units of 100. So this is an interesting project. It's been in the works for about 4 years. And this is a whole new ball game for this staff. They have to learn different cutting specs, different growing, different pest thresholds and problems and diseases. It has been a venture. But as you can see here, we have various crops in one house. We're learning as we go, but it's been pretty successful so far. And here's some examples. So this is the peperomia on the left, some of the cutting specs. And then on the right is the raindrop peperomia, which has been traditionally really difficult to get. So it's pretty cool that now we can get it in a cutting form into North America. I'd like to point out above, there's a new brand up there called Inverde. Inverde is the marketing umbrella for these programs, which you will find on expresseed.com if you have any questions or you want to look at the catalog or the varieties. And here's a bunch of us a couple weeks ago. This was actually in December. We got all suited up and washed up and cleaned up, and we were allowed to walk these greenhouses. So I went through myself and I looked at every single crop. Some of the crops might look a little underdeveloped to you. It's because that's the next set of mother stock that we will be selling from. So it was kind of newest to oldest in the greenhouse, and then they flush them through. So they're cycling the crops the same as we would in like field production. And here's some new ones. So we have, this is a greenhouse of pothos on the left. And on the right is a greenhouse of the Maculata begonia. I put the cutting spec pictures for you guys so you can see, but this is another interesting thing that Danzinger's doing. The begonias, traditionally we buy them from seed, and it's faster to finish a cutting. So they have figured out and critiqued how to achieve that shippable cutting for us.
So Megan, with these new tropicals, where's the breeding coming from?
A lot of these tropicals are open genetics. So they've been brought in and went through the elite tissue culture process to become mother stock. And now that we have cleaned everything, we're starting to interbreed and come up with new varieties or stronger varieties. So most of them are open, or they're owned by somebody that we have been licensed to propagate for.
Because there's some pretty interesting colors, like for the pothos, and you know, that's some really unique patterns.
Yes, there is. And when I was in Israel, and I'm not allowed to show anybody, but when I was in Israel, I seen about 3 years worth of crossbreeding that will come in this greenhouse within the next 2 years, and it is outstanding. It is so cool. So I'm really excited to see it as it evolves. I know customers are really happy with it, and the shippability to Canada has been outstanding. So, plus it's like getting back to the people, our farm is just starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So, you know, we're 600 employees now, but like with this new program, I would not be surprised if it adds another 300 jobs. It's just every day, like we don't even know where the limit is yet. We're just cleaning and producing and seeing where it goes. So this is kind of funny. Within the farm, everybody does quality control every day. Well, us as customers, we don't. So when we go down, this week's orders will be prepared. They will double prepare orders. So you can see in this middle picture, this is actually that customer's order for the next week. So he had to open his own order and do his own quality check and check everything and just go through the process. So they give us this little book on the left and we take out the cuttings and we actually set them right on top of the real spec photos that the staff are using, and we see if everything's right. And then at the end of this process, which is super fun, we actually close the boxes back up and we write little love notes to our staff that are back home in Canada or the US. And then when they open the box, they get little notes from their employers who were just at the farm. So it's kind of a fun little thing. This gentleman on the left here is doing uniformity protocols for checking each crop. So he'll open random bags and lay them all out, take a picture and check every single one, and then he'll put them back in the bag, make sure there's no problems, and then it'll go off to the customer. So not all fun traveling. They make us work a little bit. So here's the staff. So on the top left is actually one of the first graduating classes of elementary school at this farm. So I know that seems a little bit, normal for us, but for these individuals, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to school if they wouldn't have become employees at Danziger. And there was some older gentlemen in the group that we were talking to when we were there in December, and they were telling us that the thing that they were most proud of is that they learned to read. And it wasn't for work and it wasn't for anything for themselves. It was so that they could read books to their grandkids. And I just thought that is like the coolest thing that I had heard the whole year. And, these young people, like, this school is completely funded by you customers buying the plants. Pardon?
Sorry, no, nothing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I wanted to give you an example of that. So they just have simple schools. They're teaching math, reading, writing. They're helping employees get proper documentation for work. They also have team building days. So at the bottom there, you can see they're playing Jenga on their house teams. And then the top left, they're doing a relay and a family day. And on the bottom right, that is the hands-on training. So everybody who gets a job at this farm actually gets hands-on trainings for multiple weeks. You don't just get thrown in, and it is a stepped program. So you will start with low protocol crops, and then you'll work your way to high protocol crops. And as you work your way through, wages change, and they're paid. They are not paid in their country's standard. They are paid in the standard of North America. Like basically they're paid what they're worth. So there's a tier program, and they, on top of that, will receive benefits, medical and dental. And all of those facilities are located in the farm, and they're open to the employees as well as their families. So it's just a really beautiful place to be. And during COVID, the staff and their families didn't leave the farms. So they were brought food, and they were contained, and they were, if they wanted to be vaccinated, they were vaccinated. The things that were offered to the staff were just things that we take for granted. And it's just really cool to go down and talk to these people and see these people working. So these are some murals. I was showing Michael these about a month ago. So the staff actually did these and their families. So as you walk through the greenhouse, there's murals everywhere. So everybody is definitely taking pride in where they work. And there's all these funny little things everywhere. It's really cool. And this is us giving back to the community. So we plant trees when we go down. Danziger has us reforest the parts of their farm where they can't build greenhouses. So this is me actually in 2017, I planted my first tree. And then in 2018, my tree is a little bigger. In 2022, it's taller than I am now. So that's pretty cool. And then this year I planted a new tree with our new group. So this is my new tree. I actually planted a fig this year, so hopefully it will grow. So, and this is very Canadian. So a lot of you know DeVry greenhouses. So DeVry Greenhouses is officially the Syngenta and Danzinger rooting station for the West Coast. They've also just picked up the line of think plants as well. So the first time I traveled to Guatemala with Pete, it was by himself in talks of this arrangement. And he planted this palm in the middle here in 2017. And then this December, we're talking about generations, he actually brought his son, who's a grower at the heritage location in BC. And we went down to view the farm again, and he planted a tree with his son. So it's kind of cool. And then on the right is our entire Canadian team that went down on this trip. So you have, on the left, you have Joy Keeler from Danzinger, her husband David, who actually works for Express, Pete DeVry behind, Ryan O'Neill, right in the middle here, who is a sales rep in BC, Alberta, and Manitoba. Mike Chow with the glasses in the middle, he is the Canadian VP of sales, so he is my boss. Seth DeVry down front, and then we have Rob from Colonial to the left and Rob from Express to the right. If any of you guys are familiar with Colonial greenhouses in Ontario. So now I'm going to take you over to Syngenta. So this is Syngenta's seed facility. I took this picture inside their office. So this is a screenshot of how big the facility is. It has been there for a very, very long time. It is not a new fancy farm like the last one you just seen. So this is the ladies producing gazania seed. So everything is done by hand. The lady to the left is collecting the pollen, and it has to be collected and pollinated in the same day. So literally to the left side of the greenhouse, they'll be collecting pollen, and on the right side of the greenhouse, they will be pollinating. So the lady on the left sucks up all the pollen with her little machine, and it goes into this little coffee filter she's holding down below. And then she gives it to this lady in the red scarf, and she takes this stick with a little button on the end, and she hand pollinates every single flower. And then you will see on the flowers, she's tied a piece of yarn. So those are the ones she's completed. And then she will come back when the ovaries swell and the seed is ready, and she will pick them and put them in this seed tray, and they will go to the drying room. This is the ladies germinating geraniums. So it's the same process. On the left, they're using the machine to suck out the pollen. And on the right, she's doing the exact same thing with the exact same tool by hand, every single flower. And think how many flowers are on the top of a geranium. And then in the end result, they're going to get that tiny fluffy seed that they will have to clean and process so that we can get it. So these ladies are also doing geraniums. It's just some beautiful shots of them working. In this greenhouse, I have traveled here for almost 10 years. And there is a family that's in this greenhouse, and they remember me every year by my blonde hair. And it is a great-granddaughter, a granddaughter, a mother, and her mother. So 4 generations working in this same greenhouse. So it is very unique to come here and see these ladies, because it is families and community working together and doing this job, and it is tedious work. Like, honestly, I don't know how they produce so many billion seeds for us every year. This is another lady collecting the pollen, and then she will pass it over to the other ladies. And this is a screenshot of just every greenhouse. So the greenhouses are old, but they are decorated. Every single greenhouse has decorations on the door, decorations on the side, and pictures of their grandkids. And it is just so cool. So I was there right before Christmas. So this is Christmas decorations. But if you were to go back at Easter or any other time, you would see different decorations and same pictures. It's a beautiful sight. So this is vinca. Vinca is a newer crop to all of us. So it is very tedious. You got to use a little needle actually to get down inside the throat of the flower to pollinate it. So I took a little video for you guys. And this is the ladies pollinating vinca. So if you see, she has picked white vinca flowers, and she will spin the pollen onto the needle, put the needle into the flower, and then she'll pick only the leaves off and leave the pod on the plant. Can you see it? But she does it so quickly.
So the white coffee filter looking thing, that's what the pollen is. And then
So
that's a, go ahead.
she's cross-pollinating a white with a red to make a pink. Yeah. Here, did you see it? Do you want to see it again? Just because it's kind of, but like, it is amazing, because if you think of vinca has like a throat to it and then the flower, and she's able to do it and take it, leave the seed pod back on the plant, and then she picks another one and does it again. So that is how you get your pink vinca. But can you imagine doing that job all day long?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So here's the different seeds that they're doing. So we got some, all the forms of them processing the geranium seeds. So it's coming out of the greenhouse as the fluff, and then they husk it, and then they dehusk it, and then they scarify it, and then they coat it. And all of these processes are done manually. So they won't show us how they do it, because it's special only to each company. But when you're in the cleaning room, you can see the ladies in these cookie sheets, and they're doing it by eye. And they're sitting there really quick, and they're throwing the garbage ones into the garbage. And they just shake the pan and they throw it, and shake the pan and they throw it. It is incredible. So here's some more seed when it's all cleaned and ready to come to the customers. So all the seed is harvested, cleaned, and scarified, ready to go. And then it'll be put in a big gunny sack, and it'll be shipped to the US for packaging. So this is Syngenta's cutting farm. So it is in just outside of Guatemala City, and its primary location production is lantana, calibrachoa, petunias, verbena, lobelia, and begonias. They produce 56 million cuttings from here. They are one of the older farms, but they ensure the well-being of all their employees. And they were innovators in having a hospital on site, having a school on site, having a daycare. They have daycares so that people can bring their kids and work. Meal plans, everything. They have a dentist that comes in and does all their teeth for free. It's all included. So these people come from these little villages and literally out of the jungle, and then come to work and get health benefits. It's amazing. So Syngenta, same thing at their farm, lots and lots of pictures. They're showing their staff how to do things, how to be safe, you know, how to stretch, how to not get tendonitis, how not to get back injuries, lifting injuries. They're also educating their employees on the heat. They give everybody hats. If the greenhouse is too hot, they don't work that day, or they start earlier, or they have more coffee breaks. They have water coolers for them inside the greenhouses. So here's a picture. On the left is the main corridor of the greenhouse to go into each individual crop. And then there is a picture of the verbena production with the lobelia to the right. So I don't know if you guys can see that blackout screen, but Syngenta is one of the only companies that blacks out their lobelia. So it stays in a vegetative state for when we stick it, and it doesn't flower in propagation. So that's a picture of that. And then to the right is the new Coleus, Talavera, chocolate velveteen, and chocolate mint. So those are the stock plants. So these stock plants in this picture are actually the ones that if you buy these products this year, this is where your product came from. And here's some pictures of the verbena and lantana. So you can see how healthy each plant is. Each plant sits in its own growing media. Everything's lifted off the floor for the employees to do their work better, and all the watering and aeration and airflow. They're very clean, nice facility. Here's a begonia cutting. So this would be a begonia house. So you can see it's not fancy. They have a pie plate, some over the regular bulbs, and each little cutting speck is at the end of every table for the employees to know. Oh, here's some Canadians. I don't know if you guys recognize these guys.
That's Rob O'Hara from Rainbow.
Yeah, and Diego, who I don't think works at Van Bell anymore, but used to. So yeah, here's some Canadians. We went down to have a look at everything they were buying. This is inside the cooler. So this is, once they take the cuttings, this is how big the cooler is, and everything would be put on those racks to come to temperature before they put it in a box to ship it to you. And then you can see at the bottom here, there's the labels. So you've probably seen those labels on the outside of your box when you receive it. But all the quality control is done inside these coolers. Okay, so now I'm going to swing you over to Costa Rica. So this is Kienzler. Kienzler, lots of people know as a Nova plant. A Nova plant was founded in 1994. It's a former coffee plantation. They have average temps here of 20 degrees Celsius. So 30 acres in production. They produce bedding plants, perennials, and chrysanthemums. They employ about 600 people. And they're also the international partner of Proven Winners. So all your Proven Winners cuttings that you receive from anybody in Canada would come from this facility as well. So Kienzler is built on a hill. It is crazy. It is a trellised greenhouse and it is a hike. So you can see the incline of these hills. So they have little golf carts and little wagons, and they rip their staff around and take their cuttings up and down this hill every day, in and out to the airport. It's completely crazy. I don't know how those cuttings end up the right side up, but they do. They take care of every single last one. And then, so these are some shots of the greenhouse just to show you how hilly and how crazy the landscape is. And then to the right is actually, this is the clinic inside their facility. So this is open to the entire community around the greenhouse, not just employees. So anybody can come here and see the doctor. So it's really cool. Hedera. So ivies. Kienzler is one of the only facilities that does a trellised ivy production. So they did this for space. They've also done this for cleanliness, hygiene, and quality. So by having the mother stock elevated, they can spray under it, over it, beside it. It is clean. There is no spider mites in this greenhouse. The other thing, I didn't take a picture of it, but I can vouch for them. On the opposite side of the crosswalk, in the exact same greenhouse as sun patients. That is how confident they are in their production. You would never put something that would be such a magnet to spider mites across the street from sun patients. They're in the same house. Here's the lady in the greenhouse checking the cuttings. So these are cuttings that a lady down the row has taken. So she walks them down to the end, and this lady would lay them out, check them, make sure everything is height, size, diameter, girth, any disease, any pests or issues, and then she would take a photo of it and she would enter it into the computer in case there's any claims or credits down the road. Here's the ladies working. I don't know if you guys noticed from the other pictures, this is one of the only farms that they grow in pots. They grow with soil in pots. It's still grown hydroponically, but it's still pots and soil. It's not a media. So here's us poking fun at each other because we ran out of white coats, so we put on some of the ladies' coats. You can see they let us tour, but they roped off with caution tape everywhere so that we couldn't go too close to the plants, but they did let us come in and have a look. And here's just some close-up pictures. So at the top is caliber koa. You can see how healthy and mature and beautiful cuttings would be. And on the bottom is sun patience, which is two of probably the primary crops out of this farm that are of the highest quality. And for a good measure, this is a chicken bus. I don't know if anyone's seen a chicken bus before, but this is how all the employees get to work in Guatemala. They pile from the cities into these chicken buses, and you got people inside it, outside of it, hanging off the roof, like just so many people. And all of these buses have been imported from North America down to Guatemala, and these guys hot rod them out, and these are the taxis. So I thought it was kind of fun to include it so you can see how these people live. Yeah. And that's what I got for you today.
Well, Megan, this is amazing. You should read through some of the chat, comments. It's been this has been overwhelming. This is absolutely amazing. I think you might want to add, how they pick these sites for these greenhouses, because I mean, there's not much for heating going on. Like they take a long time to find out where to put these structures.
Yes. And it's a whole nother world. If you want to buy property down there, like even the Danziger facility, they, a farmer of a farmer of a friend who might be selling his property, like it's amazing. And all the machinery they have down there and all the stuff, like I'm very lucky to go there, and I can vouch for these farms. They very much take care of their people. Like I go there every year, often many times a year, and it's consistent every time.
Very cool. Yeah, the part that they don't eat tomatoes, I mean, that's probably a crop that they could easily grow in their backyards, and now they have to forego.
Well, that's a new thing because of what happened with the tomato viruses that came out in the last 2 seasons. It's really interesting, the different protocols. So some of the farms are taking it serious. All farms are taking it serious, but some farms are taking it extremely serious. So like at the Danziger facility, if you are a petunia or caliber koa harvester, you're not even allowed to eat tomatoes and have tomatoes in your own home. So you can't go home at night and make tomato soup and then come to work in the morning. You have to be tomato free in your personal life for 3 days as well. Then enter the farm, get cleaned up, and then go to work. So the commitment that Danziger has made to their staff, and then the commitment that the staff has made to Danziger, it goes both ways.
Yeah. And most of the harvesting, because we receive unrooted cuttings, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, but their week for resting is completely reversed, isn't it? They don't have the weekends off.
No, they work basically 7 days a week. Yeah. Each farm's a little different. Like Syngenta, there wasn't very many employees in the picture because Monday is actually their day off, because they ship near the end of the week to get cuttings to you for the beginning of the week. So most Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are the slower days for the farms.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Very cool, Megan. We really appreciate you showing us this, and it's absolutely mind-blowing how large these facilities are, and how intricate everything is put together. And it's probably all found out by trial and error, isn't it? Somebody asked me the other day, how do you know? And I said, I think they found out by default.
Yeah, we find out the hard way. Yeah, we find out from our customers. It's honestly, it's really a global family. Like all the feedback we get from customers, it gets passed on to the production facilities. It just all gets dealt with. It's amazing. It is truly amazing. Yeah.
It is.
So.
Okay, so if you want to click the button at the top that says stop sharing, there you go. Thanks again. If there's any questions for Megan, or if there's any other comments, put your email address in the chat, would you, Megan, please?
Yeah, I can.
somebody has questions for you or wants to know something more, then they certainly can. So
Yeah, and anybody at any time can approach anybody at Express Seed. We will all be happy to help you. Stop by and see us at OFA if you happen to be there, or Cultivate, or the Canadian Greenhouse Conference will be there as well. We're also coming to your event this year.
yes,
Yep, I will be there. Ryan will be
Good.
there. Lavette will be there. So we look forward to supporting you guys and Deb for your open house. And yeah,
Excellent.
anytime.
Yes. Good. Yeah. So that what Megan is alluding to is New Blooms. And just to give you a little bit of a warm up, New Blooms is taking a new direction where we're inviting more than just one breeding company to show off the new genetics, and Express with Danzinger, Beacon Camp, Westhoff, and Think Plants have come to the table and said that they would commit to shipping us plant material, which is arriving in the next week or two. And then we're going to grow them at High-Q greenhouses and display them at Deb's greenhouse. And then for us, at late June, but we'll make the announcement again, late June, actually on June 30th, we're going to have a grower day where people like Megan and some of the breeders, will actually be present. So it's going to be an amazing day. I already know that. So, and we'll be, yeah, so are we. So thanks very much, Megan. Hang on for Jason if you want. It's only 8 o'clock for you, so because you're in BC.
I'm gonna leave you all. I have lots of work to do.
Okay.
And I actually have to get ready. I'm going to Vivero to see the poinsettias in 2 weeks, so I have to get ready for that.
Wow, so you're jet lagged half the time.
Half the time. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much, Megan. We'll have people from Express present other times during the chat, but this was truly amazing. Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we have a gentleman from who has been patiently waiting. Jason is his name, and he's with a company called Southern Irrigation Drip. Yep, there he is. And without further ado, he will tell us more about the company and tell us what Southern Irrigation Drip can do, where they're located, but mostly about their greenhouse division, because they have other divisions for field irrigation in southern Alberta in particular, but Jason, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll want to give you the floor.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yeah, awesome. Right on. So my name is Jason Ostlander. I am from Southern Irrigation in Lethbridge. I'm just trying to share my screen.
Yeah, I think Dr. Mirza has to give you permission to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There
we go. Awesome.
Good to see you.
Perfect. So I'm from the Lethbridge office. My email is up on the screen there as well as phone number. I will have that on the last screen as well. And then I will also put that in the chat, so you will have access to that. There's a picture of me, so you know who's talking. And I will get to it. I apologize. It's not as smart as Dr. Mirza's was, and also not as cool as Megan's was. But it's going to be kind of just a simple introduction to who we are. So
that's very cool, Jason.
Awesome. So a little bit about us. We currently have 7 locations. So currently in Chilliwack, BC, Oliver, BC, Kamloops, BC, Williams Lake, BC, Lethbridge, Alberta, Red Deer, Alberta, and Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And we're going to be opening up in Woodstock, Ontario within a few months here, I believe. So pretty cool. We're expanding. We're trying to be able to serve as many people as close to them as possible. So that's is one way that we can do that. Right now we have about 160 employees company-wide. There's about 38 just in Lethbridge alone. The bottom picture there shows all the Lethbridge staff, and that was just a few weeks ago. So we started up about 37 years ago. Well, I shouldn't say we because I wasn't around. But the original owner of Southern Irrigation started 37 years ago, and he started selling drip line out of the back of his truck, and it kind of took off from there. And yeah, one of the ways that he did that was he wasn't going to sell junk. So one of our promises is that we only deal with premium brands. I know there's bad stuff that slips through production lines, but that's one of our focuses. We try to have the largest inventory of irrigation equipment in Canada as well. It comes at a cost, but it's definitely needed. And then yeah, we also have certified designers on staff as well for doing up designs of any greenhouses, whatever irrigation project we're working on. And then we do also have installation services that we offer, kind of growing in that area. So nothing too crazy right now, but I think that's going to take off in the coming years as well. So this is kind of just for greenhouse applications. This is a very basic layout of what you would see in an irrigation system in a greenhouse. So it starts from the water storage tank, goes through the pumping unit, through filtration. Then there's often a pressure reducing valve or pressure regulating valve. After that goes through some sort of a fertigation or injection type bypass or system, whatever that may look like, depending on the scale of the greenhouse as well. And then yeah, water meters, and then it goes out into the crop. So this is a little more in depth there. Kind of went through all of this on that picture. Yeah, this is also what I'm going to go through this evening as well. I'm going to dive into each of these a little bit deeper for you guys. Also, there's a QR code down in the bottom right to our online catalog. If you miss it, don't worry, it will be shown again on the last slide. So this is definitely not a big part of what we do, but it's the start of the system. So this is where I'm going to start. The water storage tanks. We deal with steel water storage tanks. We don't really stock much at all. Actually, if I don't stock anything in Lethbridge, I believe Chilliwack does have some tanks in stock, but it's typically more of a special order for whatever your needs may be. The plastic water storage tanks, we do stock several sizes. I believe at each of our locations, otherwise for sure at the hubs, we do have several in stock. Otherwise, we can get them pretty quick from our suppliers. So yeah, whether it's a dark tank to keep UV out or just a regular white tank, we can deal with it. And then along with that, we also deal with the liners and the covers.
Jason, would those water storage tanks always be stored inside in Alberta, or are they big enough that they wouldn't freeze in the winter?
Good question. I think it would be best to always have them inside. With proper circulation and airflow and everything, I think it would be okay to be outside in Alberta. But typically all the tanks that I have seen have been inside in Alberta.
Thanks.
You bet. Yeah, on to the next step, kind of the pumping system. We have a large stock of submersible pressure pumps and also surface pumps in stock. So whether that's going to be in a deep well type application or in a cistern or yeah, wherever it's going to be pumping from a dugout, from a creek, we can definitely deal with it. Also along the surface pumps, there's also pressure boosting pumps or just small little transfer pumps. Any size, we've got it. With that also comes the VFDs or the variable frequency drives. That's a big one for having your system as efficient as possible, especially when there's different size zones in your greenhouses. It keeps the pressure at a constant, it keeps the pump running at an efficient speed to do exactly the pressure you need and no more, no less. With that also comes pressure tanks, all different sizes ranging from a gallon up to about 120 gallons. So whatever size you're needing there, we've got it. If you don't know what size you need, don't worry at all. That's what I'm here for. And then this next one, I know it doesn't really go with the system, but I wanted to add on the fact that we do have some pumps and sewage pumps, just because I know that there are applications where you need to remove gross water from certain areas. And yeah, that's just a fact of life. Next up is filtration. There's many different types of filters that we use. It completely depends on what your flow rates are. It depends on how clean or how dirty the water is coming in to the filter. Depends also how little you actually want to look at it. So we kind of start with just the manual screen filters. It's just the cheap, the basic. It does the job. It's simple. There's not too much to it. Similar to that is also the manual disc filters. The cool thing is with the disc filters is you get a little more filtration area. You can kind of see on this picture down at the bottom, it's a pretty thick layer of discs. I wish I had a better picture, but the stack on the picture on the left of all the red, those are all individual discs that are stacked together. And then on the right there, it shows that there's grooves going each way on each of the discs. It doesn't really show it too well, but that is the way that it filters. So there's a lot more area for it to filter than if it was just a screen filter. So yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
How hard are they to clean?
These aren't hard at all. There's a little nut or depending on the size, a little clamp up on the top that you can take off easily. And then you can take out the whole stack of discs and you can clean it in a soapy bucket of water, or you can pressure wash them. You can spray them off just with a garden hose. And then typically about once or twice a year, you need to do a little bit more of a deep clean. But yeah, depending on the water there, it's not too often that you have to do that. Yeah, so not hard at all. Just the only thing is that you'd have to have the water line off for that. Kind of next one up from that is the semi-automatic screen filter. And that is this filter right up here on the left. This is a screen filter, but with a spine in the middle that has little nozzles that actually turn and clean the filter when you open the handle and turn the crank. So while the system is running, you would just have to open the handle, turn the crank till it completely stops, and then turn it the other way. And that would actually flush all of the dirt off of that screen, and it would flush it out the bottom. So it's a good, easy, simple, cost-effective filter just to, yeah, keep your water flowing, and it's not a ton of work to actually open it up and clean it. One step up from that is the automatic screen filter, which is shown down here in the bottom right, which is a very similar idea, except in this case, it's got a controller and there is a sensor on the upstream side as well as the downstream side. And as soon as there's a large pressure differential between the two sides, it means that that filter is plugged or getting plugged. And then it triggers it to do a back flush, and it will flush all the dirty water out the side outlet. And then you can pipe that out to wherever you need it to go. And then kind of Cadillac of the filters is the disc filters, the automatic disc filters. So shown up here is a Netafim Alpha disc. It's a pretty new filter. We're pretty excited about it. We've got a few of them out in the prairies already. So far, guys are loving them. They are similar principle to the automatic screen filter, except you get the added benefit of having the extra filtration area with the discs. And the discs are also very long lasting as well. There's very little maintenance that is required on these filters. So yeah, it's easy just to plug in and play. Next, we kind of move into the pressure regulating valves. I won't talk too much about these. We can do that with the electric valve type style, where we plumb on whatever components we need it to do. Yeah, lots of options. That could be a whole nother conversation. Down on the bottom, we have all of the basic spring pressure regulators. This is usually what you're going to see in a greenhouse. This is the simplest. It's the most cost effective in most scenarios. Yeah, and then also we do have the brass pressure reducing valves. They do a slightly different thing than what a pressure regulator will do. I know that sounds confusing, but it's yeah, if you want to know more about that, feel free to reach out to me at any time. We typically would use those more in residential or commercial applications, not as much in greenhouse applications, but I did want to throw that on there just because you might see that in a water system, and this way you'll know what it is. All right, moving on to fertigation. Yeah, Michael did ask me to talk definitely a lot more about the mix rate. So I am going to touch a little more on that on the next slide here. The mix rate injector is a pretty cool injector. And yeah, you'll see why on the next one. We also have the Mazzy injectors, which I'm not sure who's all familiar with them, but they're just a basic Venturi type system, which would be placed on a bypass. So it's a nice simple system. Yeah, best used when the flow rate in the water system is very constant. If there are multiple zones that are different sizes that's downstream of this, the Mazzy injector doesn't really work very well, just because it operates on a pressure differential type of idea. So it's always got to be adjusted whenever the flow rate going through there is changed. Then we also have the larger fertigation units. This is what you'll see often in larger greenhouses. I won't talk too much about that. It's very similar to what the smaller systems are, it's just bigger. And then also we deal with the Stenner pumps for injecting acid or chlorine, peroxide, whatever you need to into your lines as well. That's typically run off of a water meter or a flow switch or from a system controller as well. One other thing that ties into this is the pH handheld meter. We stock the Blue Lab pH pens. And we also carry the calibration solution for that as well, and the storage solution. So that could be a very useful tool for really anyone. So moving a little deeper into the mix, right? They're pretty cool because they take whatever flow rate is coming into them, whatever flow rate is coming through on the main line, they take that and they add a certain percentage of your mixture into the water stream. So whether it is 10 gallons a minute or whether it's 2 gallons a minute, it's always going to be the same percentage that it's injecting. So typically they're about a maximum of 2% that we usually see out in the field as a maximum of what the injector can do. And then you can adjust it. For example, on this model here, the TF571, you can adjust it from 0.3 up to 2%. So it gives you a lot of versatility there. So yeah, if you are needing one of these, we will ask you some questions. We're going to ask what size line you're putting it into, what the pressure is on the line, also what the flow rate is. And if you don't know the flow rate, don't worry, we will help you figure that out. That's what we're here for. That's how we hope we can take a little bit of work off your plate. Yeah, in addition to that, we also would need to know what you are injecting. The reason for that is just because there are so many different type seals that we can get in these injectors, and we need to make sure that we're getting the right one that you need. So yeah, specifically for acid can be very harmful for an injector if it's not actually made for it. And a lot of the injectors that we do have on our shelves can't actually handle acid. So to the wrong person, if you've got the wrong person helping you that's not asking the right questions, that's definitely something that you're going to want to mention. But again, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be very happy to help you with sizing, with any questions that you may have on any of this. I don't know too many of the specifics of pH, and I don't know water chemistry as well, but I know the equipment, and I'm more than happy to help you guys with that. Michael, is that kind of what you were looking for on this, or?
Yeah, that is. Well,
Yeah?
I had two questions in the chat.
Okay.
Let's deal with them. Let's deal with Vanessa's first, and then you can carry on after you answer these.
Okay.
These tanks that you're talking about, can they go underground as a cistern?
Great question. None of the tanks that I actually had on the pictures can go in the ground as a cistern, but we do stock plastic tanks. The brand is Infiltrator. We do stock those in all of our locations, and those can be buried for cisterns. They are stocked in, I believe, about 600 gallons. And then also, I think right now we have them in 1,200 gallon models as well. So, yeah.
And I had okay, thanks. And I had two questions. The first one is about the Mirza injector. Now, that is more like is that like and you say that operates based on flow?
Yes.
Or am I understanding that incorrectly?
That operates based on flow and pressure going through the whole entire setup. So between actually, I'm going to go back to the picture here. So there's the flow control valve right there, and then there's a bypass that goes through the Mirza. So it takes the flow and the pressure, and whatever that is, there's a whole chart on that for when you're actually setting that up. So you would have to control how much flow is actually going through the bypass with the valve, to control how much is getting sucked up.
Oh.
And also by adjusting that valve, you're also altering the pressure between the upstream side and the downstream side. So it's kind of a combination of flow and pressure, which is determining how much is actually being sucked up through the injector.
So not all your water will go through the Mazai. Part of it goes
that's right.
straight through, and some of it picks up whatever you're sucking up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so which is different from the mixed right, because that one, that was my other question. The mixed right sucks directly from the concentrate, say acid or hydrogen peroxide. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of the water, 100% of the water goes through the mixed rate, and then it injects a percentage of the concentrate based on that.
And these look like plastic units, but the interior is resistant to, the harsh chemicals like acid or peroxide. Like the internal components can handle that.
Yes. So these are plastic units. Most of the injectors that you'll actually see in the market can't actually handle acid. Even a lot of the ones that we stock can't handle the acid, but we do have specific models as well that have the proper seals to handle the acid.
Right. So with the mix, right, you can use that as a fertilizer injector as well as a sucking up high concentrated acid or hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the lettering is kind of small, but like say the TFS, the second model up, what's the flow rate on that one? Like if what's the maximum flow that you could put through that thing? The
maximum flow rate on that one is 22 gallons per minute.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then, the TF571, what is that?
That one's up to 11 gallons per minute.
Oh, that's still pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay. And what if you were only putting through 5 gallons a minute, like with a couple of garden hoses or something? Would it measure incorrectly, or would it?
No, so that one can be used with the TF571 because you can have a minimum of 0.09 gallons per minute.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then similar to that, the TF5 can have a minimum of 0.8 gallons per minute as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
so they go down quite a ways.
They go down quite a ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very versatile.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Carry on, because you kind of answered the questions here, and like I said, I had asked Jason to ask particularly about the mix right, because as we're talking about acid, pH control, and we've talked about peroxide before. Those are not very pleasant chemicals to be mixing into a stock tank, if you're only injecting at 1 to 100 or something. But it's clear that this thing can take right from a concentrated barrel.
Exactly. Yeah. You betcha. Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Moving on. Next step is kind of just a really basic one, is water meters. There's a couple different types of water meters that you can get. We stock Netafim water meters and Symmetrics. The Symmetrics ones on the left here, those have a turbine inside of them which actually turn with the water, whereas these ones on the right, these are actually an ultrasonic water meter, which has no moving parts on the inside. Lot longer lasting typically than the other ones, but yeah, it depends on what your application is. There's always pros and cons to each. Moving on to controllers. We do stock a few different brands just because everyone has their different preferences. Also depends on the size of the greenhouse as well. So quite often for smaller greenhouses, a very common controller is the Hunter controller, or also the Rainbird controllers. They're just simple, basic controllers to operate your zone valves, which are pictured down on the left here. one that's kind of new to us is the Toro Evolution Egg. This one has quite a few more options than just the basic irrigation controllers. I would love to dive into that more, but I could definitely save that for another time, just because there is a lot to it. Right in the middle here, this one is a Bacara controller. This we mount right on a valve typically, and we use this for misting and fogging in greenhouses, just because it gives the opportunity to have the valve on for, let's say, 10 seconds and off for 20 seconds or whatever you set it to be. That way you're not just putting down a constant mist or constant fog, but you can actually control it a little better that way as well. This one's very general, very basic. Just wanted to show you all the pipe and poly tubing that we deal with. So we stock a lot of PVC pipe. So anything from Schedule 80 PVC, Schedule 40, and then also lower pressure ratings as well, just for smaller or lower pressure irrigation systems. We've got lots of options there. And then the poly tubing, we've got just the thinner regular drip line that you will see in your greenhouses. And then we also have the higher pressure poly tubing that you would bury more 6 feet deep, 8 feet deep. So it's higher pressure rating, thicker wall. So whatever you need to do with your water, we've got the pipe, we've got the tubing to move it. And then, yeah, of course, we also have the small little micro tubing, like the 1/4 inch, the 1/8 inch tubing that you'll see coming off of drippers on drip lines. I'll show a little more on that in a bit here. Hose, we have a lot of garden hose in stock as well. We also make custom assemblies, whatever length you are needing. We crimp the ends on at our stores, and whatever size you're looking for, if it's hot water, cold water, we can build that for you. We try to have the largest inventory of fittings. The past couple of years here, it's not always been easy, but we're getting back there. And then also, kind of different topic, but we do also have drain pipe and culverts. Shown here is the culvert as well, just because, yeah, there's always water that you need to get rid of. So that's a little on that. Moving into drip line and emitters. Pretty much everything we stock for this is all Netafim. There are a couple different little brands that we do deal with as well. I say little, they are actually big brands, but they're smaller to us just because we don't stock as much of them. So yeah, we deal with the Netafim drip line, heavy wall, thin wall, typically used in row crops or in market gardens. So not as much in greenhouses, but it is available. And those drip lines actually have drip emitters built right into them. They're integrated into the line at set spacing. They're also set flow rates depending which model of drip line you're looking for. And that depends on what your crop is, what your soil type is, and what your flow rate available is as well. Next one would be the Netafim Junior Woodpecker Drippers. This one you probably see a lot more of. That's right here in the middle, the red dripper there. There's different colors. The different colors mean different flow rates. We do stock thousands and thousands and thousands of these. So hopefully we're never out of them. We use these quite a bit. They go along with our hanging basket assemblies, which are over on the right here. And then also our CNL dripper assemblies, which I think I can hide that. Oh, there we go. So you can kind of see it down at the bottom here. Here's a main line. This is a 3/4 inch poly tubing running all along the row, and then the drip emitters come off of that with the 1/8 inch micro tubing coming off there, and then there's actually a stake which pokes right into the pot. That's our CNL dripper assembly. Those we can either ship you the components, we can sell you the components to make them yourselves, or we can actually make those in-house at whatever length you would like these to be. We can also punch them into the main irrigation tubing as well, whatever spacing you're needing. I think the closest we've done it is about 2 inches apart before, and we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of feet of that. Actually, I think I can say millions of feet. We punch a lot of that. That's all done through our branch in Chilliwack. They have a machine which actually does that. So there would be a bit of a lead time on that, but I just wanted to let you know that that is available. Hanging basket assemblies, kind of coming back to that. That has our dripper right at the top, which would be poked into the either the 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, or 1 inch tubing, which would be running up top with the water. Comes down with the 1/8 inch micro tubing, and then down at the bottom there's a little weight. That is what we use for hanging baskets, because we can actually flip that up as shown on this picture here. We can flip it up and clip it to the 1/8 inch tubing to actually close off that water stream. That way, if you remove that hanging basket, if you sell it, if you ship it out, you can just turn off that dripper line, and you don't have to worry about water coming down there, especially if there's plants below that for any reason. You don't want water dripping everywhere. So that's kind of a cool thing, pretty common. I think it's very applicable to quite a few greenhouse growers throughout the provinces.
Yeah. Jason, we have a question.
Okay.
How do I calculate the amount of time that I need to set the timer on a hanging basket to ensure that they are watered well?
That is a great question. I'll be honest, I can't speak too much to the scheduling myself, but kind of a general basic answer is, first, it kind of depends on what's actually in the pot, what your growing media is. Depends how fastly the water actually goes down there. But typically what we try to do a really low flow and not too long, so that it actually slowly soaks into all of the soil in the pot. We don't want it just to be on for hours so that it's just running straight through, because then it will start just creating channels. It will go straight down through the pot and it will be gone, never to be seen again. You want it to be a slow soaking process.
The emitter that you put on has a certain flow rate, doesn't it?
It does. Yes. Yeah.
And what is the typical flow rate? What's the typical flow rate for those emitters?
A very common flow rate that we see is the 2 liter per hour dripper, and that is actually the orange one right here. That's a very common one that I see a lot in greenhouses. Also, I see a lot of 3 liter per hour and 4 liter per hour, but I would say mostly the 2 liter per hour drippers.
And those emitters, they have a little seal in them, right? So that they all come on at the same time, because otherwise your pots in the front of the row are going to get more water than the ones in the back.
Yes, yeah, actually, thanks for mentioning that as well. Yeah, so they are, they've got a little diaphragm right in the middle, which will make sure that the whole entire line completely pressurizes before any of them open up. And also, if there's a higher pressure at the beginning of the line versus the end, which we quite often see, each emitter is going to put out exactly the same amount of water. That being said, there are different models of drippers available. So if you're just using a really low pressure, like a gravity system, and you don't have enough pressure there to open I guess you could say the fancier drippers, then we do have just very basic drippers that whatever water is there, it will let out up to a certain flow rate.
And what is the minimum pressure you need to get these emitters to open up?
Minimum pressure is about 14 psi.
Oh, so that's not very much.
So it's not very much. No.
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 Okay.
Pretty low. Yeah. You betcha.
So her follow-up question is, can you have different emitter sizes on the same line for different size baskets?
Great question. Yes. Yeah. You can put as much of or a large variety of different irrigation types on the same line, as long as you won't be needing to irrigate different items for different times. So as long as your times all line up, then yeah, you can have the largest variation in dripper size that you would like on each line.
You just have to remember which dripper is what, because otherwise you're going to hang the wrong basket with the wrong emitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they do say on the emitter what the flow rate is as well. Otherwise, just phone me, tell me what color it is. I can let you know as well.
Okay. Vanessa is saying for a larger volume, she puts 2 drippers close together.
Yes, yeah, that's actually very common that we see as well, especially actually in nurseries and in tree applications, just because when a plant is starting out, then you often need less water than when it's larger, which makes sense. So that way you can actually add a second dripper or even a third dripper later on if you need so. Yeah, so there's a lot of versatility there for adding and also removing as well. You can also take out drippers and plug the holes if needed to.
Oh, how do you plug the hole?
We have what's called actually just a goof plug. So you can just pull the dripper right out, and essentially a goof plug looks very similar to a dripper, except there's no hole through it. It just caps off the hole.
Debbie is asking that she has a couple of emitters that have a busted diaphragm, so I guess they must keep running. How do I fix that?
Great question. Best way is just to replace them. They're not too expensive. They're, I think, about 50, 60 cents a piece, depending which one as well. But the best way is just to replace them.
And I've tried pulling them out of the line, but it's not that easy. Or is there a special tool for that?
Sometimes it is not. There is actually no special tool. But what I have seen people do is they actually just take a little side cutter and they cut it right where it does go into the main line. So the barb would stay in the line, but they typically just flush that out the end. So I know that's not ideal, but I have seen people do that.
Well, that's what we do.
If it's not.
Okay.
Okay,
So
perfect.
Yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so is there a right? What if you stuck the black end into the hose? Would that be a problem? Does the red end have to go in the main pipe?
Great question as well. Yeah, the black end cannot go into the main pipe. Your dripper will not work properly if that's the case. I have had a couple customers before call me and say that they just got their drippers and it's not working. And I actually had a colleague who was struggling with it for probably about 10-15 minutes on the phone. And then we realized that, no, he had the black end into the main drip line. So yes, it is important that the larger colored end goes into your main line, goes into the water line.
Bess wants to know if there's a good way to get the kink out of the folding part of the hanging basket dripper.
That is also a good question. Over time, they do kind of wear down and it's not ideal. But yeah, they do wear out. So the best way is actually to cut it just above where the kink is, and then reinsert the weight back into the new cut end.
Well,
That's
you
the
can
best
do that
way.
a couple of times before it becomes too short.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause
Hopefully you
it's
have enough
only-
space to do that.
Yeah. Debbie said she pulled them out through the pipe, and that made the when the emitter was broken, you know, and she pulled them out through the pipe, and that made the hole too big.
Oh, I see. Actually, yeah, that is definitely a possibility as well. I can't speak too much to that. At that point, then you probably will need a coupling in there. Yeah, there's no way to
Okay.
fix that, unfortunately. So
We're out of questions, so you can carry on.
sounds good. And yeah, I apologize. I'm not actually looking at the chat as I'm going. I just have my one screen. So yeah, this is
Okay.
perfect that you're reading them out. So thank you.
All good. All good.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, next we kind of move into sprinklers and foggers. So a really cool one that we have is the Netafim Spinet. There are multiple different flow rates available, different diameters that you can get them in as well. Depending on how wide your greenhouse is, we might even need to do 2 lines. So that's an option if it is too wide. So, and when I say that, I do have the distances here as well. So a 1-line system, it can do a greenhouse bay up to about 24 feet. Anything more than that, you'd have to go up to a 2-line system. So there'd be 2 lines of these sprinklers in your greenhouse, and then you can go up to about 38 feet with that. So it's very cool sprinkler, very common. We move a ton of these, especially in BC, actually. These are very similar to what we saw in the hanging baskets, except for there is no flow emitter or a drip emitter up at the top. It's just a coupling, and that goes down into 1/4-inch tubing. And then down when it gets to the sprinkler, there's a little flow control. So it is a higher flow than the drip emitters. And then right down at the bottom, there's a little green spinner, and that's what actually disperses the water out into the greenhouse. One thing that you'll also notice is this little device here. This is known as a leak prevention device. This acts similar to the drip emitters, meaning that this is what controls when the sprinkler turns on. So the whole line will have to get pressurized up to very similar pressure. It's about 14 psi, and then this leak prevention device will open up and let the sprinkler start sprinkling. Same with when the system shuts down. Then as soon as it gets down to similar pressure, I think it's a little bit lower, around 7 or 8 psi, then all of the sprinklers are going to turn off exactly at the same time, and there won't be anything more leaking down. So you won't have the whole line draining and then dripping down onto your plants directly below those sprinklers. So yeah, that's a good way of preventing disease from constant water dripping in one spot. We also deal a lot with the misters, with the foggers. It's the same assemblies coming down to them from the main water line. It's got the 1/4-inch tubing, the weights, the leak prevention device, or also known as the LPD, and then the fogger down at the bottom. In this application, it's going out 4 ways. You can also get some that go straight out. So if you wanted to mount them on the side somewhere or close to ventilation, then you have a little more flexibility that way as well. Over on the left here, just a very basic system. You'll see the valve, the filter, pressure regulator, and then it disperses to the either sprinklers or foggers. Yeah, so that's mostly it for greenhouses, but I did want to mention just a couple other little things that we deal with as well. One cool one is also the Netafim Mega Net sprinklers. We use those a lot in market gardens, in Hutterite colony gardens. Yeah, very, very common for us. It's a really gentle spray. We typically use these instead of the brass impact type sprinklers that you'll see in gardens. These are a little gentler. They can typically handle the wind a little bit better. And as someone from Alberta, I know that that only is practical up to a point. So, but yeah, either way, really cool little sprinklers. Very, very cost effective. It's for the sprinkler itself, it's only, I think, about $6. And then there's a stand and then a main line, which is just a, yeah, very basic poly as well. So yeah, just a good cost effective way to irrigate a garden.
Jason, somebody's asking if the spin net or foggers can be used on the same line that I have for hanging baskets.
Good question. I would recommend not to, mainly for the reason that if you're, let me think here, the flow rates on the spinnets are quite a bit different than the drip emitters. So actually you could, but I would recommend against it just because they are actually quite different in what they do. And then especially the foggers as well, typically, or quite often they're used more for cooling. So then it's a complete different scheduling than what you'd actually be using your irrigation lines for. Yeah, so it's possible. They're very similar pressures that they each run at, but I would recommend against it. Does that kind of answer that?
I'm thinking, and on the on those magnet sprinklers, how far do they reach? Like, what's the width?
Those ones reach kind of from about roughly 30 feet up to more of, I think they can go up to about a 60-foot diameter.
Wow, that's quite a ways.
It's quite a distance. Yeah. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I do have videos of them running as well that I could send to anyone who's interested. Hutterite colonies love them. So yeah. Any other questions on that or on?
No, we're good. We're good right now. Carry on.
Sounds good. Yeah, another thing we deal with a lot is water treatment. So everything from the dugout to even drinking water. So we'll deal with aeration and then also treatment for in the ponds. I myself am actually typically the one that deals with that in Lethbridge. So that's an area that I know a lot about. So if you want to pick my brain on LJ or on any issues that you're having there, feel free to do that at any time. I'd be more than happy to help you out there. And then, yeah, once it gets into the greenhouse or into your house, whatever you need to do, however much bacteria you need to take out, we can deal with all that, whether it be with just sand filters or softeners if you have hard water, or UV disinfection systems, reverse osmosis systems for under your sink for drinking water. We deal with all of that as well. And then I also have the Stenner pumps up here as well for injecting chlorine and peroxide for drinking water. We deal with that quite a bit as well. Yeah, and then another thing to know is air vents are often very important in irrigation lines, no matter what the irrigation type system it is, very important. Another one that I just had to throw on was our irrigation reels. We have these multiple sizes from 1.25" all the way up to 4" in stock. So that's more for larger gardens or for fields. I'm not as knowledgeable in that area, but I'd be more than happy to point you in the direction of someone who would be very happy to talk about irrigation reels. Yeah, and with that, that's kind of all I have. Hopefully it was helpful to you guys. It was a lot of basics. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions throughout the growing season, throughout the winter, anytime. I am going to be at Southern Irrigation probably until the day that I die. So I think you'll never have to worry about an email not going through to me. So yeah, please take down my number there, name, and yeah, I'd be happy to help.
Well, Jason, basic is what we're after. You know, like, I mean, we're grower operators. But you've shown us a lot of different options from basic to fancy. You know, even timers. I think that's a really cool feature that Southern Irrigation carries those, because I think for hanging basket watering or planter watering, I think most of us forget to turn the valve off, and then it's either not running long enough or way too long. So I think that's really cool. You know, that you have that feature. So
perfect.
All these different things that Southern Irrigation carries. It's that was a lot more than I had imagined. I mean, I know the company, but
perfect.
You definitely showed us a lot more of the stuff that I didn't know you also carried.
Awesome, perfect. I'm happy to hear that.
Beth is asking, do you have replacement valves for the square water tanks? We broke the handle on one of ours this weekend.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's probably a banjo style valve. We do have adapters and also some valves in stock. It depends on what thread type it is. If you could email me a picture actually of it, then I could tell you very quickly if we do or not. Some of those valves are very special to the tanks, so they're a little harder to get access to, but I'm pretty confident that we'd have something to get your water flowing again.
And it looks like you're going to get a call from somebody who's going to ask you about the goof plugs.
Perfect. Awesome. Sounds good.
Oh, and Vanessa says that you guys also carry RO systems.
Yes. Yeah, you bet. Yeah. We stock those in all of our locations.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, this was very, very informative, and I think we should be proud having a company that has this many things right in our backyard, basically, right in the province. So, and how do you do shipping, like for emitters or any parts?
That's a great question. So we deal a lot with Loomis, Purelator, Ace, actually lots of shipping companies. So we do get really good rates. When we can, we try to make the shipping as efficient as possible. So for example, I actually shipped out a shipment to Deb's Greenhouse and to you, Michael. And that I got that a little cheaper two ways. For one, it was awesome that you wanted it shipped together because that saves some money. And I actually also shipped that from the Red Deer branch to get it even cheaper. So for that reason, I actually covered that completely myself. And I do try to do that as much as I can whenever it's practical. Whenever we do stuff like that, the only thing I ask is that there's give and take, because we do still often have to charge for freight, simply because there's not enough space in the margin for us to cover all of it. But as much as possible, I try to cover that myself. So whether it be just a small envelope of goof plugs, or a box of parts, or even a pallet or even a truckload of pipe. We do have quite a few contacts that we reach out to for quotes, and we're always looking for what makes sense for the end user the most.
And in our business, we've gotten blindsided with freight charges in the last couple of years, and so getting something sent to us is sometimes a bit of a crapshoot, or a or a tough pill to swallow. Sometimes the freight is more than the parts inside the box.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've definitely seen that happen too, and we try to make it make sense for everyone.
Good. Yeah. Well, Jason, again, thanks very much. If there's no more questions, then Mirza, we have. I think we're breaking a record here. It's 9:45. So, but it's been super entertaining, and it's been super interesting. And I'm looking at our counts of people, and we're maintaining just about everybody that joined in the beginning. So I thank you again, Jason. You're with the company how long now with Southern Irrigation?
I started just over 5 years ago. I did have a little stint in the middle where I was offered a job elsewhere and I quit. So yeah, I started 5 years ago. So now I have almost 2 years of experience.
Oh, good. And
I was only gone for 5 months.
Oh, and you were only you specifically deal with greenhouse crops?
Right now, it's still a pretty wide range of who I deal with. I do still deal with a lot of hydrite colonies as well, but my goal for the coming year is to actually focus more on greenhouse growers and market gardens and more stuff along that line. That way, I can be a lot more focused and dedicated to what your needs are as well. So I don't know if any of you guys know Daniel Van Beek. He is currently in that role in Lethbridge, but he is going to be moving up to Calgary to be doing outside sales up there. So that kind of leaves a little void in Lethbridge, and that's where I'll be moving in to take that role.
Oh, yeah. Is he related to Case?
Yes, he is Case's son.
Ah, there we go. Family business.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, exactly.
Good. Well, most of us have met Case over the years because he was usually the one that came to the Alberta trade shows and conferences. So, that's how we know him.
You betcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Good.
All right, Michael, we should say goodbye.
Oh, Mirza, you're sound very soft here.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say goodbye, and thank you very much, everybody, and see you 2 weeks later.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
That's awesome.
Have a great
Thank you
night.
all very much.
Jason.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye,
one.
everybody.
Bye.